Hey everyone, I'm so happy to have my new friend Ashley Crooks here. And we are going to talk about nervous system regulation and how it applies to your business. And I met Ashley a month or two ago, and I was like, you have to talk to my people because one of the things that I have noticed in coaching business owners for the past 10 years is that we have to be able to be comfortable with discomfort. We're in a constant state of discomfort. And if we're unable to stay calm, stay grounded. I guess what we'll talk about today is regulation of nervous system, but that's the way I would describe it, being calm, being grounded, being clear-headed, being present. If we can't do that, it's going to be really, really hard to execute any strategy, any tactic, be consistent, connect with our audience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I invited Ashley on here. Let me give her a quick bio and then we'll jump into hearing from her. Ashley Crooks is the founder of The Nourished Leader and creator of the Nourish Method, a body-based approach to sustainable growth for entrepreneurs scaling their businesses. After building a seven-figure business while traveling to over 70 countries, she learned that the real constraint to sale isn't strategy, it's capacity. Ashley helps entrepreneurs strengthen the internal foundation to hold more responsibility, visibility, and income without burning out. Her work integrates nervous system regulation, somatics, and identity-led leadership so growth feels grounded, aligned, and sustainable. So kudos to you, Ashley, on building an amazing career. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Can you give us a little bit of background about how you became acquainted with this concept of nervous system regulation, and identity-led leadership?
Definitely. So I started my business 9 years ago, actually this week, which is so wild. And I ended up having really quick success. I knew that, if I worked hard, really grinded, I'd be able to create results. And so I was doing direct sales and network marketing, and it was my dream to travel the world and work from anywhere. And within a year, I was able to do just that. We had surpassed our corporate incomes. Like within 2 months, me and my partner made more than we had ever made in corporate in a year combined. And so things were going really well. And we packed all of our stuff in storage to leave, to book a one-way ticket to travel the world. And this was supposed to be the most amazing moment of my life, like literally about to live my dream. But what I didn't realize is in order to get there, along the way, I had really focused so much on just grinding and pushing and hustling that I lost out on a lot of myself and what really mattered. And so I ended up traveling. We first went to Europe, and we'd be on these amazing cobblestone streets in Europe and, seeing these epic places in Italy and Portugal and all over. And while I was physically present, my mind was just a million miles away. And I was constantly thinking about how to hit the next goal, what could go wrong, what someone else would think, what else I had to do, just going in my head all the time. And it was so much pressure. Even my date nights became business meetings, it
Sure.
was nonstop. And, so I ended up having this moment basically where on paper, my life looked like a dream. Like everyone would have thought that I was living this amazing life, and I was, but on the inside, while I had all the external freedoms, I didn't feel free at all. And I thought to myself that if this is what success feels like, then I don't want it. I didn't actually have the capacity to hold it. I couldn't let it in. We're promised that success is going to be like unicorns, rainbows, and butterflies. And then we get there
Yeah,
and
of
we
course.
realize whoa, now everything I was just running from because I thought if I chased the next thing and the next thing, it would give me that happiness and that inner peace. And then it's kind of right in our face. And so for me, I basically realized in that moment that, I started to blame my business, thinking maybe it's my strategy or the business I was in or all these different things. But my business, I used ads, funnels, webinars. It was running really smoothly. And ultimately, I realized other people weren't feeling that way. So it was me. And that really led me on a deep journey of creating a life that feels as good as it looks and, really going into the deep internal work. And this was back in 2018. And so I've been on that journey ever since. And, really recognizing that it is that inner work, that inner foundation, your nervous system that really dictates everything that you're able to hold. Because when you start to create success and you get amazing results, well, if you can't even let it land and receive it, then you start to self-sabotage or not even want to grow it anymore. You feel that overwhelm or the pressure. And so there's some deep, what I've learned, and I've gotten certified in a lot of modalities along the way to really support others with this, because doing this deep work has changed my life so much that while we can do the strategy, we can take the actions, we can do all the things, if we're not nurturing like noticing where our subconscious is and what that's dictating to our nervous system
Mhm.
and how we're showing up in the world through that, then we're always going to be feeling a certain way, whether that's overwhelm or stress or pressure or like we have to constantly go, go, go or whatnot. And so this really, I believe, is like the foundation to everything, and that the world mirrors our nervous system. And so that's really what got me into this work, and then why I'm so passionate about working with other entrepreneurs and to really shift this, really work on their nervous systems for themselves.
I love that. That's so cool. So we have a couple different types of people that we're working with. A lot of what your story is talking about is like the grind and the hustle. And so can we talk about like two different segments of people? So one segment of people being in the launch and trying to grow momentum mode and how their nervous system impacts them. And then the other segment of people being the people that are starting or like they're hitting goals, they're moving, they're in the process of up leveling their business practices and how that fits in. Do you think we could like look at both types of people?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay, cool.
Totally.
So for the people that are launching and creating momentum, what do you think is hard for them when it comes to their ability to be grounded and calm and sustainable?
Yeah, so I think it will depend on different things. We all have, right, different nervous system states that our baseline is at. And so there can be, let's say, five different people launching the exact same thing, but they're going to have very different experiences because of where their nervous system
Hmm.
is. And so when you think about just the fact of a launch, that brings up so much for a lot of people. Like, oh, I have to sell this out or sell a certain amount of spots. I need to show up all this time. I have to do all these different, like we write all these different deadlines or things we put on in terms of a launch. How we see the launch, like and just what we even make it mean about ourselves and how we connect it to, oh, I need to make this money versus like, oh, I want to serve, or how we allow the launch to just take over our entire lives versus maybe integrate it into our lives while we're spending time with our family and doing other
Yeah.
things that really nurture us. And so like all of those things within a launch, we can look at them from all different nervous system states and really see how, one person in a launch in one type of nervous system state might be, right, that grinding, hustling, like
Hmm.
needing to just push through and just literally sacrifice everything else until the launch is over, right? So they maybe
Hmm.
don't really sleep, they don't really eat, like with their family, they just constantly are moving because they're so fixated on that goal. And then another person might be always in their head, just constantly thinking about the launch. And like even when they're, out doing other things, they're just nonstop thinking about all the things they have to do or what needs to get done and adding more and more things to the list. And then another person might be thinking about how much they want to make sure everyone's happy in the launch and that they're saying the right thing and that they're not hurting anyone's feelings when they make bold statements about their products or their claims and, that they're not ruffling any feathers in the sales process. And then there's another person who might have so many ideas about their launch and what they want to do, but they can't actually get themselves to execute it.
Sure.
And so really when it comes to like a launch specifically, I think that based on your nervous system state, there's so many ways that we can approach it. And I think, I guess, just to specifically touch on like the hustle and grind piece, if that's really our natural state, which I'm sure for a lot of people it is because we're taught, right, that doing is so glorified in our culture, then it really will be like that constant kind of push to the finish line of even when our body is telling us, like, I can't do this anymore, I need a break, we're just like, oh, but one more thing, but I can do it.
Yeah.
And, and this is on my list, and we fill our calendar up with all the stuff we have to do, just constantly just push until basically, that launch is done. And then we probably need to take a big break because we're
Yeah,
exhausted.
yeah. Yeah, and when I'm talking about the launching part,
Mhm.
I'm talking about like the extended period of like figuring out the idea, making your first workshop, like doing all of that. So that's super helpful. What I heard is like the first thing we need to do is figure out what type of person that we are. Can
Mhm.
we look at, okay, so if you're the person who's like makes a list and like I'm just gonna focus, I'm gonna get stuff done. What are some of the recommendations you give to that type of person when it comes to their nervous system and getting that sorted?
Totally. So for that type of person, I would really say to just notice, like start noticing when you get in that state of like, I need to get this done and I need to make this happen, and allow yourself to start with your breath and really utilize it. It's such a powerful tool, but utilize it like intentionally in the sense of just pull in and then go down, like really intense breaths to start to bring your energy and like back to yourself and almost meet yourself with that same pressure of breath. So that's just one tool. So it kind of look like and like feeling the breath go down to your root to ground you more into yourself. And in terms of just like what I would recommend overall for that type of person is I would say to again start to notice your patterns and like come back to yourself and just check on yourself and like be like, what do I actually need right now? How am I feeling? Maybe even give yourself a little hug and just nurturing, because for that type of person, and I know because this is a lot of what I've gone through, is we can get so fixated right on that getting it done, and we could be so in our heads that we forget to really check in on ourselves, and that's ultimately what our body needs. And so just coming back to yourself and yeah, just being like, what do I need right now? Or, is it really the best thing for me to do this next exercise or like this next action, or do I just need to take a break for a few minutes? Like, will that be okay? And allow yourself to actually take that time, and through that compassion with yourself, you're actually going to be able to get a lot further in your launch than you would be if you just constantly pushed as well.
Yeah, my next question was be like, so what? Why not push, right? Like, as the type of
Mhm.
person, you're like, okay,
Totally.
I've got this much time, I need to get it done, and then it'll be fine, and then I'll take a break. How does it impact our audience, or how does it impact our business if we just push through and we don't take those breaks?
So much. As someone who has burnt out before, I know this firsthand, right? We can only do that so long until our body will basically be like, nope, not anymore. And we'll ultimately, right? It's kind of that pendulum swing and we'll go all the way to the other side. And that was really my experience within business. And ultimately, yeah, we can do that constant push, right? But at some point we're going to hit that wall, and whether that wall is our body is telling us, or we're just not feeling fulfilled and we're wondering what is this all for, or people feeling that energy of that push, or us looking really at our lives and being like, wait, but I just spent all this time in my business, what happened to the rest of my life? Like, where did
Sure.
it go? And so what that really does to us a lot of ways, we need to look too at the underlying belief. Like, what is the subconscious belief of why we feel like we have to keep pushing, why we feel like we have to keep going? And a lot of us are taught, right? In order to be enough, we have to keep doing. That's a big achiever belief. And also that that more is better, right? That if we have time, we need to fill it, that we have to constantly be doing more, that's going to bring us more success. But there's such a big rewiring that can take place of, I'm sure you can think of people that you see online doing this now too, that you might know that are really living like it's not so much like people talk about, right? Just time block and, give yourself those breaks. But I know from firsthand experience that we can do that. But if you're in that push mode or that constant, like thinking about your business and the constant go, 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 even if you do step away from your computer or you step away from that launch, you're still going to be super tense. You're going to be thinking about the launch. You're going to still be in that push mode. You're not going to actually be able to relax. So again, that's where that like deeper nervous system work comes in. But if we keep going in that push, eventually, yeah, we most likely will fry our nervous systems and then really have to kind of start from
Yeah.
square one in that deep work.
Well, and I just think it's so hard to serve people when you're in that
Yes.
space with that
Yes.
energy.
Mhm.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is like this fight, flight, or freeze
Yes. Uh-huh.
response. So that's definitely the fighter.
Hmm.
Talk to me about what's happening with the nervous system and how to fix it with my freeze people, the ones that look at the stuff, kind of panic a little bit. I think about tech issues. I think about looking at a list, maybe that feels really long. I think about learning new skills, and the people that are freezing, they're like stuck in analysis paralysis or procrastinating, like running away. Of course, there are like tactical strategies to overcome procrastination, but talk to me more, and we've done stuff on that, but talk to me more about what's going on in our body.
Yeah. So first, really understand and like have so much compassion for yourself, because your body and your nervous system is just trying to protect you. It just ultimately thinks that doing that big action or whatever it is that you're freezing in is unsafe. And so even just knowing that, I think can release it a bit, because oftentimes we're so hard on ourselves. Like, why can't I just do this thing? Why am I not taking the step? But
Hmm.
it's really your nervous system protecting you. And so even seeing that, I think, is a really big shift. And then
Hmm.
from there, recognizing like, okay, how can I break this up into much smaller pieces so that my brain and body can actually get on board so it feels doable? So instead of having that big goal of whatever it might be, just, okay, what's the thing I can do today to get to that one goal? And just constantly break it down so that you can take that step. And then ultimately, it's about building that self trust again with you and your body and your nervous system. And so, really, in a different way, right? I was talking about coming back to yourself with that fighter, but in the freeze, it's really like nurturing yourself and like really like, hey, this is called havening. And like, this is a practice that you can do. And just letting like giving that soft touch to yourself, really those slow movements to just let yourself know that you've got you, that you're safe, that you
Mhm.
can trust yourself. Like, for example, I went into freeze after I had the fighter response really strong
Mhm.
and I burnt myself out. And then I went into freeze and couldn't take action anymore because my body didn't feel safe
Yeah.
doing it. So I really had to work with freeze on that level. And so just rebuilding that trust with your body again and letting your system know that that you're not gonna, push yourself too hard or that just taking that little step is gonna be enough. And so really doing those slow motions and just that one step at a time can really help with freeze.
Yeah, I love that. And if you guys are watching that video, I hope you caught that gold nugget, which is if you feel really overwhelmed looking at a task or a new skill or whatever, what is the next thing that like breaking it down into teeny tiny pieces so you can take one little bit of step.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. What about the flight people? So the runaway, the procrastinate, the I can't like that. What's happening in their nervous system and how can we address that?
So there in the flight, right, there's so much energy where we feel like we need to move it. So there's this anxious energy, there's this energy of, right, I want to run away, of I want to, right, I just need to keep going because if I actually stop and pause, everything's going to collapse or something's going to go wrong, right? So I have to keep moving because feeling that busy and
Mhm.
that do is really safe. And so what can be really supportive because slowing down can be one of the scariest things for
Sure.
someone in a flight and actually, right, pausing, maybe sitting in silence, sitting with yourself and thinking about everything that could come up. I know that is terrifying for a lot of people. And so when someone has flight, it's really starting to notice, first off, just on a like tactical level of, okay, am I just right doing to do? Am I just constantly adding to
Mhm.
the list? Or am I actually doing what is moving the needle? Like, am I actually doing what is going to serve the greater goal? And then when you actually create that space, giving your body and your nervous system somewhere for the energy to go because we have a lot of energy and I can talk about all these states because I've wavered through all of them throughout my life and business. And we all do to a certain degree, right? But like really noticing all that energy, it's got to go somewhere. And so oftentimes that's why we can have so many thoughts in our head is because that
Mhm.
energy, we're not moving it. And so it's just going all up into our head, into thoughts. So for people in flight, there's different practices that I would really recommend in terms of even just like doing lunges, like moving your body side to side in a side lunge can be really supportive for flight to move that energy. And also, shaking is a really powerful practice. If you think about it for like animals, when something happens to them, they just shake it off and then they're good. We're the only like living species in that sense that actually holds on to these things after we process them or after they happen. And so it's a really primal practice is to just shake off like anything that you're feeling, just actually move that energy. And then from there, once you've actually moved that energy, you'll be able to actually access more of that stillness because you won't have all that energy moving around. And then from there, you can approach your business and
That's
what
smart.
actually you feel is integral to success.
That's smart. So I hope you guys caught that. So if you're the type of person who's like, I could do this work, or I could go and do the dishes and let me do all this other stuff that's outside of my business, the steps would be to actually move and get that energy out so that you can calm yourself down and get back to it. Ashley, what are some of the routines that you would recommend that entrepreneurs put in place to be proactive or even to just get themselves back into a more natural state?
Yeah, I think there's so many different directions we can go here. I think one thing that's important that I like to share is like while a morning routine is powerful and there's a lot of benefits, right, to a morning routine, with this type of stuff, I think it really comes to you have to be doing this like all throughout your day. And so really become aware when your patterns get active and then in the moment right, start to regulate yourself as well. We can start our day off feeling really good, but then all the chaos of the day and life gets thrown on us and our
Hmm.
business. We need to keep coming back to it. But routines, I would say, what can be really supportive is first off, like planning your week, is getting clear, if you have a launch or just in your business in general, planning your week and actually planning when you're going to do certain things, even if it's just like putting time blocks so you can, and
Yeah.
you put a few different things that you could choose in the moment, but like getting clear on when are you actually going to take that break for yourself? When are you going to do the work? And actually, what are the key things we have to do for this week versus, I'm guilty of making to-do lists and they can get longer and longer
Yeah.
and
It's me
longer.
too.
Right? And just like focusing on those and then actually even scheduling in, whether it's reminders on your phone or in your calendar of like, okay, take time to go outside, take time right now to do a regulation practice, like take time for myself to pause, to take a breath, get off the screen. We only work, like our brain is only super productive and I think it's like 25-minute
Yeah.
chunks. And so actually you can be more productive by giving yourself that space. And when your body is on board with you because you're nurturing it and because you're working with your nervous system, not against it, your capacity can grow so much more. Because again, you're not thinking of scaling as, whoa, it's this whole big thing.
Yeah.
You become so much more regulated and grounded where a lot of the stuff that happens in business, like refunds or a client complaining or just the natural, right, all the things, business is the
Hmm.
greatest
Yeah.
personal development journey.
Yeah, no kidding.
You're much more regulated so you can handle them all, so you can move through them all faster to then create what it is you're ultimately here to create. So just in terms of routine, I think and that's all a really big piece. And I would just say, like, take time to get to know yourself and to realize that maybe the way you've just been behaving or acting in your business is just a pattern. It's just a
Hmm.
nervous system pattern. It's not actually who you are. And you don't have to, if it's uncomfortable, like, keep showing up to your business this way, or keep telling yourself the stories of it's overwhelming, it's a lot, I can't do this, or whatever it might be. And just start to go within and sit with your system consistently and really start giving yourself what you need.
Yeah. What do those stories do to our nervous system? The ones you were just talking about.
Yeah. So again, it will depend on your state, but it could be like, there's just everything relies on me. Like there's so much pressure. Or it could be like, I constantly, right, have to do, there's so much to take on, or am overwhelmed. I like, or this person has it this way, but it's so much harder for me, or really
Hmm.
any of, right? So much of the limiting beliefs that we carry around business, right, come from, right, our subconscious and then really how our nervous system is wired in that way. So just like pretty much, right? And I'm trying to think of like big stories that people tell themselves, but we hold ourselves back and we're really the main reason that we hold ourselves
Yeah.
back. And so it's all those limiting stories and they're simply just coming from what your nervous system can hold, and trust that too, again, it's protecting you. So you have these stories because they're a way to actually protect you. So if you think something's overwhelming and you won't do it, well, that's protecting you from doing
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah, that
so
makes
starting
sense.
to really see how they're serving you can help to start to shift them as well.
That's great. I love that. As we wrap up here, Ashley, what do you think? One of the things I wrote down, and I hope you guys got it too, is that planning your week, like as far as routines, I have planning my week in advance and putting like when am I going to do what thing. And then second, scheduling in outside time, time to take breaths, time to actually rest and reset. If you could give everyone in our community just one action to take to feel better as they're moving through their day-to-day in their business, what would that be?
Yeah, so I would say first off is to notice how you are feeling. Oftentimes we just get in our heads, right? I know for me, for so long, people asked me how I felt, and I was like, good. And I wasn't actually really in touch, right? That's like
Right.
what we naturally say. Wasn't really in touch with like how my body or how I was actually feeling. And so I think even just knowing how you're feeling and can be so huge. And again, recognizing that this isn't you. You don't have to feel this way. You're not
Mhm.
just, stressed all the time, like a lot of people say, or, you're not someone who doesn't take action. Like that's not actually you. So that's again where your nervous system is operating from. So just really recognizing that. And then from there, thinking about how do you want to feel? We never think about that. Like, how
Oh
do you
yeah,
actually
good.
want your business to feel? How do you want to feel throughout the day? And set that intention for yourself each day. And then see throughout the day, like check in and notice, even if it's again, phone reminders, post its, whatever it might be, like, am I feeling this way? And if you're not, well, that's a good indicator that you probably could take some time to, again, get off the screen, to regulate, to come
Mhm.
back to yourself in some way, go hang out with a friend, whatever it might be. But ultimately, what we're chasing in business, we think it's the money, we think it's the whatever. And of course, we want to serve, but because we think it will all make us feel a certain way.
Right.
And so if you can start getting in touch with how you actually want to feel, and then really starting to pause throughout your day and check in with if you are feeling that way, that can like be huge in shifting and recognizing too. I will say, like for me, for a really long time, I just, wanted to feel joy and inner peace. And I
Yeah.
actually didn't have the capacity to feel that. Like my system didn't actually feel safe. So I would maybe be able to feel joy for 30 seconds and a negative thought would come in. And so some of these states you might have to really cultivate and start slowly building for your body to
Mhm.
actually have the capacity to feel safe feeling that. And so I would really be gentle with yourself as you're noticing it and try not to force those feelings. But yeah, just take time and do some of the practices that I shared in here as well to really come back to yourself and start to whatever feels really good for you to start to feel those ways that you're
That's
desiring.
great. That's great. What I wrote down is like asking myself, how do I want to feel measuring up against that instead of just like, I guess, running around with a chicken like a chicken with her. Actually, this is so, so, so good. I think you have a quiz for everybody. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked a lot about different nervous system states in here and how we're running our business. And my quiz will actually tell you, it's called Which Version of You is Running Your Business. So my quiz will actually tell you which version it is. So if you answer, I believe it's about 12 questions, you just go through them, different ways that you're showing up in your business, then you'll get an outline of which one it is for you, which, yeah, nervous system state, which version. And then from there, I give you specific tools and really strategies that you can
That's
utilize
cool.
to actually feel the way that you're desiring to feel, or what your system, I'll share in the quiz results, what your system is actually desiring to feel to get you to that next level of success. So then when you are mapping out how you want to feel each day, you can keep those feelings in mind and really start to shape that so that you can then again create success that feels sustainable from a place that really feels grounded in you.
Cool. I love that. Where can they find that?
So the link is ohtheplacesashgoes.com.
Okay, cool.
That's also my Instagram handle, so you guys can find me there as well. But yeah, like I said, I used to travel to 70 different countries, so I was always all over the place, hence the Oh the
I love
Places.
that. We'll make sure that we drop the link with this video so that you guys can check it out. Ashley, I'm so grateful for your time today and your expertise and your enthusiasm about this topic. It really gets me pumped up as well. And so I want to say thank you. I'm sure Ashley would love it if you guys would drop your takeaways in the group. What did you find helpful from this? What was your one nugget? What was your aha moment that you had? Some of the ones that I wrote down were I need to be aware of what type of response I typically have when I start to get overwhelmed. Putting the time blocks in, scheduling in the break time, I think is super important. And how do I want to feel? So I'm going to think through that after this conversation. Ashley, thank you so much for the value you provided to me and also to our entire community of online entrepreneurs. Hope everyone enjoyed this. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.